Put your hands up. And now, it's time for our good hands moments presented by Allstate. Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was the insurance. He was the Allstate insurance for the Cleveland Browns, and now they are in good hands with Joe Cool. He has third straight game with 300 yards. He had 368, a bunch of touchdowns, and the Browns rolled over the Texans. It seems like they are in better hands with Joe Flacco than they had been with any of their prior three quarterbacks this season, Deshaun Watson included, and their defense is one of the best units on either side of the ball in football. What do you think the ceiling is for this Browns team with Joe Flacco?
Oh, gosh, that's the question. Can we talk about them not having a kicker and how that made the game more fun for me? The ceiling for them.
Okay, that's a better discussion. The Browns don't have a kicker. This is what everyone wants to hear. Yeah, it's a terrible discussion. Talk about the team.
I was transitioning to the talk about the team. The ceiling is. We had this conversation a few weeks ago before Joe Flacco was playing as well as he still threw, I guess, one interception in this game. The second one, I can't really blame him. I mean, the second interception he threw was like right before halftime because they didn't have a kicker in his fourth down. He threw a jump ball quarter end zone. The other interception, legitimate interception, he took a deep shot. So that's the problem with Joe Flacco. And what I said before he started playing well was he has the capability of being really good for long stretches or for significant stretches, which means the ceiling for a team with a defense like this and a receiver like Amari Cooper, who apparently is unguardable. Yeah, they can compete in the AFC for real. However, is Joe Flacco going to do that? No. He threw a bunch of picks last week. He threw one in this game that I consider a real pick. He's going to throw more interceptions through the course of this season, especially in the playoffs. And defense, as good as their defense is, because of all the rule changes in modern football, you are not going to just defense your way to the Super Bowl. So for them to make a run, the game when their defense doesn't show up, because it's going to happen, Joe Flacco has to turn back the clock and play out of his mind. And then the rest of the games, the defense can keep him in there. So I don't know if we have to put a probability on a percentage chance, but they have a much better chance than they ever have in recent history right now, considering what Joe Flacco's shown the capability of doing.
Okay, so Dominique, let me ask you a follow-up question. I want you to list for me the quarterbacks playing in the AFC right now who are not going to throw a bunch of interceptions every game.
It's Patrick Mahomes.
Can you give me those quarterbacks? Patrick Mahomes throwing picks. I don't know if you've seen him play recently. He is.
Kadarius Toney's out there. The ball will be up in the air.
I can't think of anybody in the AFC that's not going to give it to the other team right now. Tua?
It's pretty much Brock. Tua is going to throw some passes up there. Like if he's getting pressured, which the Browns are going to be able to get pressure on Tua if they play, he's going to throw some passes up there. Josh Allen, we're going to talk about the Bills, but Josh Allen is still throwing interceptions. Mahomes is throwing picks. Who else is making it to the playoffs? Lamar? Lamar can have games like that too, for sure, especially in the postseason. I think in a normal year, I would agree with you. I would say the chances of Joe Flacco being perfect again for 3 games like he was in the postseason a few years ago.
That was like 12 years ago. But also, we're old, by the way.
I want it to be
a few years ago.
The problem is this is an AFC where we don't have that quarterback. Nobody's playing at that level right now. It has for weeks. So Joe Flacco does not have to be perfect. Joe Flacco just has to be the guy he's been the past few weeks, because the Browns are playing as well as any team in the AFC right now. They just blew out a Texans team that admittedly did not have CJ Stroud, but
is this actually just more evidence of how awful the Jets are? Because Joe Flacco looked like he didn't deserve to be in the league last year. He was playing for the Jets, but then he comes out and he just balling with this team.
Before we get to that, now a second topic in a row. I have to nitpick something you said, Dominique. You're saying that Joe Flacco has to black out and play at like a super high level for them to have a chance. I'm not just talking about the Super Bowl. There's a high chance they're not going to make the Super Bowl. But in this AFC with that defense, do they need to score more than 21 to 24 points a game to beat any of these teams? Any of them, even the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen's teams, because that unit, I can't think of a unit in the AFC that I trust more than the Browns defense.
This is why you're such a great producer. It's because you know how to properly snip what I said and leave out the context and try to make for a clickbaity argument. So my point is the point that I was making, and I'm sure my friend Bill Barnwell understood it, is that there will be a game or two where the defense does not ball out. And in that game, Joe Flacco is not going to be able to get away with throwing 2 interceptions or 3 interceptions. I just sincerely believe at some point in their playoff game, Joe is going to have to play a really good game. Not these games that he's been playing now that have been good given the context of how the defense is played and the time in which he turns the ball over. So that's my point. I don't think he needs to go back to all the way blackout throughout the course of the entire playoffs. And you're right. The teams that he's playing are not going to put that up against them, especially against this defense. But I think this is true of every team. There's going to come a game where your quarterback's going to have to cook.
Let's put this in perspective. The Broncos, when Peyton Manning had a noodle arm, they won their 2 playoff games before the Super Bowl. 24-17, 26-16. Like, why can't that happen with this Browns team?
And they had to play Tom Brady, and Tom Brady was actually a good quarterback, unlike any of the quarterbacks these days who all suck.
It can. So. Lots of things can happen. But we're not dealing in, like, is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Anything is possible. And we've seen just about everything take place in the history. What are we, a 100+ year history of the NFL? Yeah. But that's not a routine thing in modern football where you just...
This isn't a routine AFC conference.
You and I aren't disagreeing. It could happen. But is it likely? Hell no. It's not likely. There's going to come a game where Joe's going to have to cook and not turn the ball over.
Refer back to the ceiling, because this changes the ceiling of the team. Absolutely. Because if I had told you when they had Deshaun Watson, who stunk, when they had PJ Walker, who stunk, when they had DTR, who stunk, the idea of them having to just rely on a quarterback to perform this well in any game was impossible to give their defense a shot. Now it's a shot.
Twist this around to make this like I'm the one arguing against this. Before Joe Flacco went on these last couple of games, I was the only one that said that this raises the ceiling for this team.
Well, now you're lowering their ceiling.
The ceiling hasn't changed. I felt this way the whole time. This is the gassiest of gaslighting that's ever happened on Christmas Eve of all days. Stop it.
No less.
Charlie.